Good morning, everybody. It is a very beautiful Saturday outside. I'm looking outside. The sun is out. I know it's cold, but it's supposed to warm up today. So I'm going to go out and exercise just by going outside for 5 seconds, turn around, come right back in. I think there's a football game on today. Maybe Cindy, Judge, do you know? I know there's two games. I don't know if they're both tomorrow or one's today or one's
today. I think they're tomorrow, but I'm not sure.
Well, I'm not sure either. Well, that concludes our program. Thank you. That's all we had you on here for. No, our guest today is the Honorable Cindy Chappell, who is criminal court judge in Division 6. She's our criminal court judge, and she's been in office just not too long. So we're going to talk about that. So thank you, Judge, for being my guest. As you know, I usually ask an irrelevant question at the beginning of this, and as we were talking, I saw that really bright red vase to the right. And then while you were turning, there's another piece of artwork that's also bright red behind your head that we can't see. So what is that? Where'd you get that? And what is all this artwork doing in your office?
I'll take the long way around. Okay. I was a lawyer for a long time, 29 years before I was elected. And during that time, I represented thousands of clients. And I'm very fortunate that some of those people thanked me by making me pieces of art. And the glass piece you can see behind me, I don't know if you can see it. It's a piece of blown glass that a young man was going through a hard time, but we got through his legal proceedings, and he brought that to my office the next year to show me what he had been doing with his time. So that's a very special piece to me. And he knew reds and oranges are sort of my favorite colors. He knew that and incorporated those colors into the piece that he did for me. I also have some really nice woodworking pieces. I had several clients that worked with wood, and that means a lot to me. That's a lot more than somebody paying you for your service. So those are special. I have a lot of family items. These are not things that taxpayers paid for in this office. I had collected a lot of things over the years, and because I've always spent a lot of time in the office, I like to have those things around me. So that's what you're seeing today.
All right. I did see that you have a set of the scales of justice, and they look like they're pretty balanced at this point.
So, I hope they always are.
I hope they are always. Now, one other question. There is something above your door. I think your robe is hanging in there, but there's something above it. It looks like, I can't tell what it is.
Well, my mother will appreciate this. That is a golden eagle that my mother bought in the 70s that hung in our house when I was growing up. And when I don't remember if when I got out of law school, she gave it to me, or sometime in the last 3 decades, that's come into my possession. So that's also something that's been with me wherever I go.
It's really nice. I like your office. This is in the Birch building, correct?
It is. I'm on the 5th floor.
Yeah, it's very nice. You got a lot of good artwork, and I'm going to come visit sometime. Do I have to buy a ticket? Do I have to buy a ticket to get into your office?
No, you have to buzz in, but
you just have to buzz in. Okay.
We'll let you in.
Thank you. Well, okay, so we're going to get started after all that. I now know that your favorite colors are red and orange, and that you have a lot of artwork, and family is very important to you. And I will recognize that your mother is on this call. Okay, so she's watching, so don't mess up. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of pressure, not from me, but from your mom. So welcome Cindy's mom onto the call. It's been a very interesting week. This is just me talking. We lost a couple of people who are very important in the national community. Avi Poster passed away. And I was thinking about Avi this morning. I spoke, this is my moment of personal privilege. I spoke to the folks at NOAA, their board of directors, a couple of years ago. And they just asked me to comment on a couple of things. And I said, I said, who is the moral compass? Who are the people that represent the moral compass of this city? And I said a number of them have passed away. It used to be John Siegenthaler. Bill Barnes was one of those moral compasses. Father Breen. I know Charlie Strobel is still around. But a lot of the people, and I know I've missed people, but there were people that we looked to for some guidance. Avi Poster, if you didn't know, was one of those people. And he passed away this past week, and we're going to really miss him. And a friend of mine passed away, a lady by the name of Judy Redmond, who did a lot of senior citizens programs out at Cone Learning Center. And she was extremely active. She passed away this week. So we lost a couple of really key people in this city. Obviously, if you're paying any attention to the news, all this stuff is going on in Memphis. We're hoping for peace and good discussions on that, but that's been very difficult to watch. And from the Metro standpoint, we're dealing with a lot of legislation, which we talked to Dewey Brandstetter last week on this call about the bill that reduced the size of the council. That bill is on notice this week, which means it's up in a House subcommittee. The city's subcommittee in the House, on the House side, it's up Wednesday afternoon at 3:30. And so I would keep an eye on that. But if you're watching the news, there is other stuff coming our way. There was a measure filed, I think, yesterday to, take away kind of the funding that was going to the convention center in terms of the money that's being generated, which is used to help pay for it. Have not seen the bill, just saw the story. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Stay tuned. There's a lot of stuff happening. Karen Johnson, our Register of Deeds, has joined the call. Welcome, Karen. And we're ready to go. We'll recognize anybody else who gets on. Our guest today, the Honorable Cindy Chappell, who is a criminal court judge from Division 6. Your Honor, you've been a judge for 4 months now. Is that right? I'm trying to figure out. Okay. So if it's okay, I'm going to call you Cindy because we were friends before. But I also respect the position very much. But tell us a little bit about yourself. Well, where are you from? I know you're not from Nashville, but you got here as quickly as you could. Where are you from? How did you grow up? What were you doing? And then obviously you practiced law for a long time before you came to judge. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I am originally from McKenzie, Tennessee, a small town of about 5,000 in West Tennessee. It's about 2 hours from here. My parents are retired public school teachers in that area, McKenzie Special School District. And I'm the oldest of 3 children. Most of my family is still in McKenzie. So that's what I call home when I'm going to see my family. And I think that growing up in a small town, it goes without saying, is vastly different from growing up in an urban community like Nashville. So I was, and having my parents as teachers, which is and should be a position of high regard in the community, I was able to participate in sports in a way that I would not likely have been able to if I was at a bigger school in Nashville. I was able to go to a small church with a small youth group. Just the scale of the population that I grew up with really gave me the opportunity to know what it's like to have everybody know who you are. And I think that's a positive thing, or it was for me.
When you come back now, is there a sign at the entrance of the city that says, welcome, Cindy, or and this might be something for your mom to do? I mean, is there like some recognition?
No, however, the local newspaper, the McKenzie Banner, did carry the news that I was running for judge and also that I was elected. And I would also say I had a class of 86 in my high school class, and 2 of us are now elected judges. Brent Bradbury was recently appointed and then elected in West Tennessee.
You think Was it something in the water?
I don't know.
Okay.
But
All
I'm
right.
taking you the long way around. I went to Memphis State. Well, first I went to Rhodes College. I had to have a scholarship. I was very fortunate to have that. I got a great liberal arts education. I thought I was going into law enforcement. That was sort of where I planned to land. But then I ended up with a scholarship to law school. And coming from a family of educators, we take free education anywhere we can get it. So I thought I'll do that first. And as it turned out, I really enjoyed not so much law school. That was hard, but I enjoyed the people that I met, and I saw a different path for myself at that time. And I wanted to try practicing law before I did anything else. And I fell in love with it. I'm very fortunate that all those years, I really enjoyed my profession. So that's how I came. And then through the years, people had suggested to me occasionally that I might want to run for judge. It was not something I was interested in. I didn't know a judge until I became a lawyer. So it was really not, I did not think that was in the cards for me. And I loved the profession that I had. But this position came open. I got a lot of encouragement very quickly, including from Joyce McDaniel, who is on this call, and other very close friends of mine. And so we decided that we would take the chance on doing that. And that's how I came to be a judge. And it's been, we can talk about this later, but that has been an interesting, or I would say challenging transition for me.
Okay. So how did you get from law school up here?
Well, as is often the case, there was a man and love on the end of that decision. So I met Jack Brown. We met at Memphis State Law School, and he knew he was coming back to Nashville to practice law. And we had not made any formal plans at that time. So I started practicing law in a small town in West Tennessee, Bolivar, Tennessee. But Jack and I continued to burn up I-40, as they say. And one day he asked me if I wanted to move to Nashville and get married. And I did. So that's what brought me to Nashville. Jack and I have 2 boys. And that's been just, I didn't know that I would want to live in a big city, but once I put down roots here, Nashville, I really have fallen in love with it. I call it my home away from home now. And I moved here in 1995. And I know there's a lot of different views about where Nashville is headed and where it's come from. But overall, I find it to be a wonderful place to raise a family and to work and to want to be a part of a community.
Well, obviously you're very much a part of our community. What you practiced when you got here? Practice with a firm? What else did you do? Because I don't even know this part.
Well, it's not very exciting. I came to Nashville. I wanted to be a solo practitioner. I didn't think I wanted to work in a big firm for no reason other than in my mind that was going to be something that would inhibit me from doing other things that I like to do, like travel or work my own hours or raise my family the way that I wanted to. I may have had the wrong impression of that, but that was how I felt at the time. So I had my own office. For a little while, I was associated with one of the most outstanding small firms here, Dotson Parker and Bim, now Dotson Parker, Bim and Caparella, because I did think it made sense for me to at least learn how a law firm worked and understand their best practices. And that taught me invaluable skills that I could then also translate to a solo practitioner's office. But with their support and mentorship, that really made a difference in me being able to grow my own practice. And I credit them for supporting me in doing that. Not all firms really invest and allow their associates to grow and then grow on their own. So I'm very grateful for that.
So at some point, obviously, the position opened up, the criminal court Division 6 position opened up. It was Judge Mark Fishburne. And he, and I remember when all this happened, it was kind of a quick, he announced he was leaving, and then there was a bunch of people jumping into the race kind of really quick. What was it? And I know that you're limited in terms of what you can talk about in terms of running for judge and being a judge, but kind of from your own personal perspective, all of a sudden, we people who run for office, all of a sudden you throw yourself out there. And what was that like? I mean, because obviously you were practicing law, and all of a sudden, in a period of about 3 or 4 days, or maybe even less than that, you had to decide whether you're going to do this, and you did.
And with no regrets. And actually, I got the call that Judge Fishburne was retiring about 5 o'clock on one night, and the filing deadline was the next day at noon. And the process that we took at that time, and it's funny, I was working at the office, and my friend Hal Harden came in and said, Judge Fishburne's retiring. Do you want to run? And I said, no, I'm working on a deadline. I can't think about that right now. I'm working on a motion. And he said, okay. So he went on down the hall. And then we decided that I think it's important to me as a lawyer, and I think it's important in every community, that you encourage good people to seek these offices. I'm not necessarily putting myself in that group. I know I'm sitting here now, but at that time, on that Wednesday night, we made a list of people that we thought might be interested in running and that we would be willing to support. And we started calling people, and nobody was interested. So at 5 o'clock the next morning, I said, well, I'm going to put myself in there. I think I'd be good for the job. I'm not positive that that's where I want to be, but I want the voters to have a choice. And I think I'd be a good choice. And I knew at that time, I'm a much more deliberate person than that. It was unusual for me to make a big decision that quickly, but I'm really glad that I did. I think I've learned that for women especially, it takes a lot to run for office. And as you say, put yourself out there. And had I had a week or 2 weeks to think about it, I might have looked more at why I shouldn't do it than why I should. And I'm really thankful that I had a lot of immediate support, and we were off, and it was fun. The campaign was a lot of fun, and I knew it was going to be for 72 days. And I thought, well, if I lose, I've done some great marketing and met a lot of interesting people. And I really at that time wasn't thinking, and if I win, then I'll be a judge. It was more just, I'm going to try this process, and I'm glad. I encourage it. I certainly encourage it.
Well, I will tell you this. So I happen to be, I remember, because it was last year, it wasn't that long ago. And I remember those several days when this was happening. And then I remember I just happened to see you kind of right when you announced and right when you took off. And I've always told people that if you're gonna run for these offices, and again, running for judge is a lot different from running from other elected officials, because you can't go up there and say, I'm gonna do this. No, I mean, right. You're a judge. You have to look at cases and facts as they come to you. But I've always said that if you're going to throw your name in, you have to do it 100%. And I could tell right away that you were in, and you were in it. And that's how you run. You shouldn't get in these things if you're not really sure. But you could tell at the beginning that this was something you could do, and obviously you won. What was it like during those? I mean, because again, once you made the decision, you got to go, again, you're limited in what you can say, but you got to go out and kind of meet people and at least let them know who you are. What was that like?
You do. And Jim, I mean, you're a countywide office holder. It's it's daunting in a way, and you have to do it with an eye toward not everybody is going to like me. Not everybody is going to want to hear what I say. So you have to be, or I learned very quickly because this was completely new to me, you have to be a little thick-skinned and be willing to take criticism and be willing to talk in a calm way with people that don't necessarily agree with what you're doing, or somebody that really supports your opponent or your opponents in my case, and doesn't want to have any conversation. And that's okay. But the process, I would focus on the positive parts of it. To me, we have a huge county with a tremendous population, although our voting population is very small. Getting to travel to places that I wouldn't have gone necessarily. I mean, I'm a solo practitioner. I'm a parent with children active in sports and school. Those are the kind of things that typically had taken up my time. And putting a campaign on that, they were very supportive, but putting a campaign on that did allow me to see parts of the county and go to events and locations and meet a group of people that I wouldn't have necessarily crossed paths with, not for avoidance reasons, just simply because my life was in a different place at that time. And I have no regrets about it. I don't know that I'd want to do it for 2 years at a time, but for a few months, it was wonderful. I really enjoyed every minute of it. I got to meet you. I had not known you personally before, although I knew who you were. And so just meeting some people that are civic minded and really invested in Nashville and our community, I loved it. So I look forward to doing it again.
Well, good. Your term is for 8 years, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it for a little while. But I do think, I mean, not just chiming in, I think if you like doing it, sometimes, you know, I've known people who have run for office who are uncomfortable initially with walking into a room without knowing anybody. But once you if you can get over that hurdle, and once you do, it can be fun because you're going to places and meeting people you don't know.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: the transition over. So obviously you practiced law for 29 years, but transitioning over to becoming a judge, what was that like for you? Besides putting up all the artwork in your office, what else was it like just to all of a sudden become? Wait a minute, I'm arguing before an individual who is a judge, and now all of a sudden I'm switching roles.
Yes, tremendous transition. Far different than even I anticipated. And for me, for people that don't know, we had a primary in May, and that we had no opponent in the general election. So once May 5th happened, I knew as of May 5th that I would have a new job on September 1st. So I had a lot of transition time, but I will say it's really it wasn't enough, and it's still not enough. As a lawyer, I have 6 months from September 1st to what they say is wind down my practice, which was thriving. So 6 months is not a long time as a lawyer to do that, especially when my practice primarily was representing individuals, people with personal problems, not businesses. Or work that you could more easily transition to somebody else. People were invested in me, and I was invested in them. So I spent really the summer, from a business perspective, working on finishing the cases that I could finish, because I knew once I took the bench in September, that was going to take a lot more of my time, even though I still have and still do have some cases that I'm winding down. So really the summer was spent doing that. And it wasn't until closer to the time of my swearing in, which it's really interesting how you can exist in this state of complete excitement on the one hand, and simultaneously feel a real profound sadness at leaving a profession that I loved. And when you become a judge, I and all of my colleagues, we are governed by ethical rules. I cannot give legal advice except to close family members. I can certainly advise my family, but I can no longer ethically do the one thing that I really identified with all my life or all my professional life. So I don't know, maybe for some people, it's just you flip a switch and you're a lawyer and then a judge. It has not been that way for me. Now, I think I'm going to grow into this role, and I have been. If you watched me on September 5th, or watch me this week, you can see that I am more comfortable. I am more easily addressing the situations that are coming before me. But it has been a huge transition. And one, maybe it was because I was a lawyer so long, maybe it was because I liked it so much, or maybe it's just because it's a difficult transition for anyone. So but again, I've enjoyed it. So.
Yeah, I would think it would be first of all, a unique transition. And second of all, a difficult transition to switch, to all of a sudden switch from something you've been doing for such a long time, switch over and then get used to it, get used to a whole new role. Did you have to go to like judges training? Did you have to do any of that stuff to kind of get ready? And then maybe take the people who are watching through that first couple of weeks when all of a sudden, because I was there when you put the robe on, and then all of a sudden you're a judge. And it changes. It does change a little bit about how you have to act. So take us through that first part.
Thank you. And stop me because I do tend to talk a lot. So feel free to interject. We are required, and I think it's very interesting, and I should know the exact number, but let's say there are about 130 judges across the state of Tennessee. And just like lawyers are, we are required to have at least 15 hours of continuing legal credit every year. The state provides that to us at a judicial conference. We have 3 that we attend that are, they're 3 or 4 or 5 days, 3 different times a year. They also perform what is referred to colloquially as baby judges school, which is a 40-hour school, which fortunately for me, there was one they try to do it annually. So I got to go in August before I took the bench in September. For a lot of judges who are elected or appointed in an off cycle, or elected in a time when the school is not being held, you just go on the bench. So I was thrilled to be able to have that little bit of introduction and what happens is judges come and speak and lecture and talk exactly about these things. These are some things that are going to change for you professionally. This is how you can't be political in the way that you have been. Your First Amendment rights are really different when you are an elected judge than they are as a private citizen. You've got to be careful where you go, not so much who you talk to, but you as a judge, the most critical thing that the community seeks is a fair and impartial judiciary. And in your personal life, you must at all times really try to promote that about yourself, but also to make sure that the public and that the public has a feeling of comfort that you as a judge are not swayed by this person or this organization or this set of beliefs. And it's absolutely critical. And the people around me sometimes laugh at me because I use these words like democracy and cornerstone of our free nation, but those words are true. And it really does begin with having a judicial system that is fair. And so I've really tried to learn, it's not just me, Cindy Chappell. I'm watching really excellent judges that I have known for a long time and trying to emulate those that I believe, particularly live those ideals. And so that's where it is for me.
Right. Well, so I was looking at some of the questions that came in, and one was about the transition. It also, the question asked about mentoring. So the question started with training, which you've talked about, but obviously there are other criminal court division judges in Nashville. Do the judges help each other, not in terms of, this is how you should rule, but in terms of, this is what you're going to expect. This is kind of how the place operates.
Yes. And again, I want to remind people that are listening that in Davidson County, we have 18 trial judges, 18 people that have the same office that I do, although we have, like, I do just criminal. We have some that do just chancery and some that just do divorce or circuit or other proceedings. But we're talking about a statewide group of judges in rural areas where some judges handle cases in 5 different counties. That's where the term circuit came from. A judge would literally ride a circuit to handle cases.
You don't ride around.
I don't ride anywhere.
On a horse.
I walk across the street to my office.
Okay, good. Okay. All right, so you've got all these judges that, yeah.
To say that, the judicial what is the word? The Trial Judges Association has an informal mentoring program where they give all new judges the opportunity to have a mentor assigned to them. Because I think in part, I have 5 excellent colleagues here I can ask a question to, but they're busy too. I mean, I don't like to infringe on them. I'll tell you, I keep a running list and I ask a lot of questions. So I just take it by the numbers. I'll ask Judge Dozier a question on Monday, Judge Dalton the question on Tuesday, Judge Blackburn the question on Wednesday. That's just how I try to spread out the numerous questions I have. But I was assigned to Judge Walter Kurtz, or I guess I would say he was assigned to me. He was a retired judge. And I frequently call him, not to say, how does the law work in this situation? Although a judge can have that conversation, but only with another judge. But to say, all right, I anticipate this situation is going to happen in this case. We've got 5 defendants, or we have 1 interpreter. What is the most efficient way to address this? And how can we ensure that we're moving the case along appropriately? And Judge Kurtz has been wonderful. He always takes my calls. So that's all I can say.
He doesn't take my calls. No, I'm just kidding. Judge Kurtz is a very good person. He was the public defender, and my brother worked in the public defender's office. So that's how I know Walter Kurtz and Judge Kurtz. So let me ask you another question that came in. And again, and this goes to maybe the training or how you yourself handle the courtroom. So it was a pretty long question about different specific things. And I'm not sure, I don't think I can ask you specifically about some of this stuff, but logistically, or what the question is trying to get to is, every case is different. And there are going to be people that come in, with their lawyers or come in by themselves. There are going to be people who are lost. I mean, just get lost in the process. There are people who are fearful. There are people who are not fearful. There are witnesses. There are all kinds of other things. How, in terms of your style, because this is talking about, everything from, you've got a person who may be sick, and is in this process and is having to deal with other stuff. How do you make it so that you make people in a difficult situation feel comfortable in the courtroom, or feel that the court system is fair and is listening to, the wants and needs of people who are in there? That's a long question, but how do you do it? Well,
I don't, all I can say is I try to do it. I don't know that I'm doing it successfully, but how I always try to say, okay, When I go to the doctor, I'm nervous. I'm afraid of what I'm going to be told. I don't understand the process. I don't understand the words. And so it is helpful to me if the doctor says, okay, here's what we're going to look at. And this test is for this reason. And you're going to get the results about this time. And I'll go over them with you. And I'll tell you everything you need to know as you need to know it. So I try to do the same thing when we come into court every week. When I've got a courtroom full of people, and let me just say, as to numbers, we run a docket every Wednesday and Thursday that has anywhere between 14 to 22 pages, 3 persons on a page. So we're going up 60 people average on those dates. And the courtroom is full. We have witnesses, I have lawyers, I have family members, I have defendants that are on bond. And I just try to say at the outset, we have this many things to do, ladies and gentlemen, and it may look like nobody's paying attention to your case, but all these lawyers talking to each other are trying to get us to a place where we can address your business as efficiently as possible. If there's a problem, if you need to leave or if something needs to happen, please let one of the court officers know. And I'll try to communicate with you and update you as we go through the day, because our days often start at 9 and we don't break very often. I mean, I try to take a 10-minute break every now and then, but we don't take an hour lunch break or anything like that. So I just try to, I think information helps people, and I try to share as much information as I can. But we can only do this, the work that's happening, the work the lawyers are doing, it takes time and it takes conversation. And we have more cases and defendants than we have lawyers working on them. So that means some lawyers have 2 or 5 cases in my court and the same number in another court down the hall. So it takes some time, but we try to be as polite and as efficient and as transparent as possible. And let me just add to that, one of the things that I have been able to rely on is the court staff in Division 6. I have Jay Blackmore, Steve Hawkins, Holly Leach, Mike Young, and Mike Malone are in the courtroom. They are trained professionals. They have worked in government and in the courtroom for many years. And that makes a big difference too in being kind to the people in the courtroom, treating them in a dignified manner. I'm very fortunate I can rely on the employees to do that, and it makes a difference.
I can imagine, I mean, so I'll get into the Memphis situation in just a minute. And I know you're limited about what you can say, but there are cases, and you may not have gotten anything this way, but besides just trying to make people feel comfortable in the room, there can be additional pressures, particularly with the media and with other stuff coming in, that in some way, I mean, just from just watching things on CNN or whatever on the news, where the courtroom can become something different than the way that I remember, or that maybe you even remember just recently. And so I don't know if you've had to experience like that, but is that part of the training as well, about how to handle some of these cases that are going to attract tremendous amounts of attention?
Yes and no. I think that is a learn as you go process. For example, I think probably people in Davidson County know there is a very prominent trial taking place in the Birch Building now in front of Judge Dalton with regard to the death of a nurse. That case, I believe they're working today, actually. So I would say, I think the freedom of the press is very important in our society and for a transparent government. I also believe that when you're presiding, and I've been watching Judge Dalton, who sets an excellent example in her courtroom of being calm and handling that proceeding. So I haven't had a case like that at this point. I think we all will at some time. But again, what you have to remember, I think, is serious cases are happening in these courts every day. Only some of them get the type of, for whatever reason, get the type of public attention that we see. But every day we're dealing with loss of life, horrible crimes. There's no shortage of the human drama that takes place in the courtroom every day. And these are open courtrooms. I mean, a citizen can come down and watch a trial almost every Monday if they wanted to do that. And you really get a feel for the types of cases that are happening in the community if you do that. I don't know if I answered your question, but
you did. I think so you're watching every night on the news right now with this case, and I think we're very fortunate in National-Jackson County to have judges that do handle these things well in very difficult and trying circumstances. Having said that, obviously just watching the news from Memphis, and I'm sure you have to be limited in what your discussions, what you can say about any of this stuff. But you're a person just like anybody else. You turn on the news and this is the lead story and it's everywhere. And from a standpoint of, do you, because of the potential of cases coming this way, do you have to turn the television off? Can you watch television? Can you watch this stuff?
Well, yes, I think I can. I watch because I want to be informed. So I do watch the news and I do read the newspapers. Where I have to be careful is, for example, there's some thought that perhaps there may be, I don't like to use the word riot, but there may be public displays in Memphis, and that could bleed over into Nashville in a similar way that we saw public unrest in Nashville in the wake of the George Floyd killing. And because arrest resulted in that situation, I think I have to be careful what I say in this setting, because I could well be dealing with a similar situation as a result of this. But we can all look at what's being said publicly, and I think we can all say, if those statements are taken as true, and I certainly don't know any more of the facts than anyone else, but if those statements are taken as true, then certainly a tragedy has occurred.
Well, and obviously there's lots of attention to it. I was always interested about that because, again, it's you can't avoid it if you turn on the television and if you're paying attention. But you also, are having to deal with what could come down the road. And right. I think that's interesting. Well, so a couple of other things. We've got about 15 minutes left. Tell me, so you practiced law for 29 years. Tell me, what's one of the most interesting things that you remember that you can tell me about? Not as a judge, but just in terms of your practice. I love the fact that you've got artwork in your office from people who, that you represent. But anything really that stands out that was something unique or something that happened?
Well, I think I would say in general, with the kind of practice I had, I really got to be close to the people that I use the word help, that I was helping. And oftentimes I got to be close to their families, because anytime someone is involved in the legal system, that impacts your children or your parents or your spouse. And those were all great experiences for me. And I met a lot of people, and I'm very, very proud to say I have a lot of clients that became friends. And I also have a lot of friends that became clients and stayed friends. And that's been very rewarding for me. But I would say what stands out the most, what I think I've learned and what I would encourage younger lawyers in is the cases and the people that the most rewarding work is the work that you do for the people that can't pay. And for people that are, as everyone is certainly worthy of competent and caring representation, but when you give your professional talent to a person that they're going to fall through the cracks if they don't have that, it really makes you, it's for me, but I'm like, okay, I did something great. I did a great service here. And so it makes you feel good. But I can't emphasize that enough. Really, for younger lawyers, it cannot be all about the money. It's really, being a lawyer is about serving.
Yeah, and as a lawyer, I understand that. I practiced and did other stuff, but it was always, to me, I understood that was the responsibility. Okay, tell me about, you mentioned this before we started, but obviously you're a connoisseur of the arts, or whatever that means. So obviously you have artwork in there, but you mentioned that you're working on some type of art installation, something that's going on in the halls of the Birch Building. What is that? And then maybe tell me why you're doing it.
Okay, I am in no way a connoisseur of the arts, so I don't want to spread that. I like pretty things. I like bright colors. I appreciate other people's talent. I'll put it that way. I don't know that I have any ability to discern what's nice and what's not.
So let me stop there. Have you ever tried to paint or draw, or can you sing, or can you play an instrument, or
I can tap dance.
Do you have any? I was going to say, do you have any talent at all? But you can tap dance. Okay, so I got that. All right.
And I recently took lessons during the campaign. In fact, I'd taken all my life, or all my young life. But to answer your question about and art is sort of a loose term, but I do have a creative side and I think that helps me being a lawyer, and I'm hopeful that will help me being a judge, because we've got written laws, it's words on a page, there are rules you have to follow, but in any profession, I'm sure that if you are creative, you can often find a better solution that is still within the law and still meets with the requirements we have to meet, but that creates a much better outcome. And I hope I'll be successful in bringing that to Division 6. But when I got here, so these are government offices. I'm very fortunate. I had a lot of things that I could bring to have around me, but otherwise it's just the taxpayers, and I'm very grateful. They give you a desk and a phone and it's bare. So the hallway outside the office suites, there are 4 of us, or 3 judges in the office up here, are empty. So I decided that I'm gonna just start putting some interesting memorabilia out, because it's for the lawyers to come see, lawyers that are in court. It's really, at this time, although I've got another plan, at this time, this is not for public viewing. It's for lawyers and judges to see. Right now, I've got the poster-sized transcripts from the testimony in the State versus Bill Powell case, which is known as the trial of the century in Nashville. I've got those posted outside in the hallway. I've decided that the next, and with a frame about what they are, the next installation is going to be campaign buttons. So I've got them placed in a case. I've got a little notation of the history of how campaign buttons came to be, and that I'm going to do that next. And the third one that I know is coming, and I welcome ideas, but the third one that's coming will be a history of each of the 6 divisions of criminal court, because for a long time, you would have judges sitting. Judge Fishburne before me, this Division 6 was created 18 or 20 years ago. Judge Fishburne was the only judge in this division. Now I'm just the second judge. With these 8-year terms, often you end up with one judge being on the bench for many years. I don't think that's a bad thing at all, but historically, I think it's important to remember who those figures are and what has the transition been in each division. So those are the ideas that I have. It's just something to occupy my mind.
I got it. I thought at one point, and this may be something you're thinking of eventually, and I don't know if you may be limited in what you do. At the courthouse, at the historic courthouse, it took a while, but I think it may have been under Mayor Briley, that David Briley, that all of a sudden we started seeing artwork in the courthouse. Okay, and it was like, why haven't we been doing this before? We should be showcasing Nashville artists. And while you were talking, and then you said, I invite ideas, you know me. I was going to say, I'm sure there are people who come to the system that have artwork, and it might be interesting sometimes to showcase their work, particularly if they get through the system and we're trying to provide, I know there's lots of different things to do, but in terms of providing positive feedback and encouragement to people, maybe you could do an art show for people who have come through the system. So
I think that's a great idea. And I think Judge Blackburn has some art displayed in that vein. So yes, I think that's a great idea. And I think it's important to, especially in these courts, we have to highlight the positive that there is. I mean, these are serious proceedings. It's very serious business that we're dealing with, but we're still dealing with human beings. We're dealing with, when we put someone in prison, and I say we, but I take it as me in employing the law that has been given to me, that person still exists. That person, in most cases, is not out of view of society forever. And so any small thing that we can do, and I think we should be doing bigger things, but even small things that we can do are important to the re-entry of that person. Because look, we have a society where we expect, we do have punishment, but the punishment is not forever. And we have to have an idea that if you've served the sentence that was given to you lawfully, you've got to come back into society, and everybody's got to be able to do that, both the offender and what victims, if there were victims, but also society as a whole.
Okay. If people want to, based upon that, if people want to know more about the system, or obviously you said people were invited to come down. So if people want to just come watch, what do they need to know? What do they need to do? They don't need to call first. I mean, how do they find out what's going on in the courtroom, and what's the proper thing to do to, if people, I mean, it's the same thing with coming to a council meeting. I mean, people going like, when is it? Where is it? What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to wear? Do I have to do something? Do I have to ask permission? Yeah, we're just open. But if somebody wants to come to if somebody's interested in seeing how it works, what should they do?
That's a great question. And it's like so many things that if you're not in it every day, you don't know. So I think it is appropriate that when you come to court, you're dressed appropriately. That doesn't mean you may have on your Sunday best, but you need to be clean. All of those things are basic. You can call Division 6 to see. On Mondays, we start trials. And right now for this year, every Monday, except for maybe the holiday Mondays, we have 4 or 5 jury trials scheduled. So your odds of getting a trial are very likely. Give us a call. We'll tell you. We do jury selection. I think what you would find as a citizen is wow, it's just like on TV, but a lot slower. We're doing everything that happens in a 1 hour crime scene drama, but it takes 2 or 3 or 4 days. But it's interesting. I mean, it's real life. It's real people that are sitting 10 feet apart from a jury of 12 people that are deciding guilt or innocence based on witness testimony. It's extremely dramatic and fascinating, I think. As a citizen, you might think it's boring and it takes a long time, but it's very weighty, I would say, if you really think about the impact that the jury's decision is having. But call Division 6. We welcome you to come. I love to have high school and college students come. I have 2 interns from Belmont right now, and in this division, we throw them right into work. I mean, they come in, they've already seen 2 trials this year. One last and one this, juries. That's great experience for young people. And I welcome that. I plan to I will have an intern program throughout the course of this term.
Okay, so we got one last question for you. It just came in. It was, and I'm not sure if you can answer or how you can answer, but obviously you're seeing as a judge, and you haven't been a judge that long, but over the next, over your term, you're going to see things that come through, and I think people are going to go, or you're going to go, you know, well, if we had done, or somebody's going to tell you, if we had done this earlier, if there had been resources earlier, maybe we wouldn't be having this trial. And so the question generally is, how do we reduce crime? And I don't know, first of all, I don't know if judges can, judges obviously are seeing all this stuff, and they make recommendations like that. But it's kind of like a not-for-profit. I mean, we'd love for there not to be any crime. We'd love for you not to have this job. You're going to have this job, and you're going to see lots of cases. The question is, are there some things that we can be doing as a city that you see? And again, I think it's a good question. I'm not sure how you can answer it. Okay.
Okay, I'll try. So when we talk about crime, that's sort of a big lump of business. And typically in the criminal justice world, we're looking at violent crime versus nonviolent crime. But if we're going to talk about crime as a whole, I would say eradicate poverty, ensure that your public schools are turning out graduates that are job ready and proficient in reading and math. I would say put resources into both of those buckets, because even in the short time I've been on the bench, and certainly when I was a lawyer as well, what I'm seeing are occasionally a mean person. I don't mean to use an elementary term, but let's just say I'm seeing a mean person versus a lot of occasions where I'm seeing a person that has had a horrible childhood, often in poverty, lacking in education, lacking in any social support network, struggling with untreated mental illness or undiagnosed mental illness, or struggling with a substance abuse. And often simply not having the ability to seek help for those problems. I will credit our Sheriff, Darren Hall, who I think is very aware of particularly the mental and substance abuse illness. He's got a new program, the Behavioral Care Center, that when people are being arrested, if they qualify have those types of issues, they're already, and that's huge. I believe that those types of changes will have an impact on what I ultimately see in my courtroom. I'm not seeing small thefts or little assault cases. I'm seeing people that typically, for the most part, have been in the criminal justice system for some time. So I guess it doesn't answer the question, but I guess I'm telling you what I'm seeing just in a few months. Ask me in a year and I might have a different question. And I think it's fair to say, as to violent crime, we look at a lot of instances where if a weapon was not available, then we wouldn't have a homicide. We would likely have a serious assault, but we might not have a deceased victim. So those are just off the top of my head how I would look at that.
Thank you. Thank you for answering. And I like the question and I like the answer. And I think we keep listening and keep looking and keep learning, because obviously we don't have it right at this point, but we need to keep working on trying to get it right. So, Your Honor, Cindy Chappell, Criminal Court Division Judge, Division 6. Thank you for being my guest. This has been really, really informative. The judge's mom, thank you for being on. Do you need to tell your mom anything while you're still on this call?
Thanks, Mom. Thanks for everything.
All right, good answer. Caleb Emmer is a new state representative in the Tennessee State Legislature. He is the newly appointed chair for the Davidson County delegation of the state legislature. He's going to be my guest next week. I was going like, I need somebody to tell us all the stuff that's coming at us right now. So it's going to be an interesting conversation about, everything from reducing the size of the council to everything else that's coming this way. So anyway, keep an eye on it. Everybody be safe. A lot of stuff going on. Judge, have a great weekend. Everybody else. And just enjoy the weekend and have a great week. And hopefully we'll see everybody next week. Thanks, Judge.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.